So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another preview battle for the upcoming patch, and this one does have me in it, and I'm going to be playing as the Dwarves of KHAZAD-DUM, and it behooves me to learn a little bit more about them, as they are going to be the first faction that I do an overview on as voted for by you. So we'll go through my army composition first, and then we will go through my opponents, and at the front here I've got 4 units of the Orc Hunters of KHAZAD-DUM, and it really does behoove you to take this unit as well, because to be honest with you, something that I wasn't aware of is that KHAZAD-DUM have got no crossbow units, and that is a pretty big loss. However, on the other side of things, Erebor do not have any composite bow units, so in terms of range, KHAZAD-DUM will have a bit of an advantage there, but in terms of stopping power, probably a little bit less so. But yes, I have 4 units of these Orc Hunters, and normally I wouldn't bring quite this many, but the opponent I was up against and the faction they had chosen kind of left me with little choice but to have as much range power as I could. And then if we look in a little bit further back here, we can see that I have got 4 units of the 3rd Legion Infantry. Now the 3rd Legion Infantry are slightly more elite, I believe, than the equivalent Ironfoot Infantry, and they are higher tier than the basic KHAZAD Warrior unit as well. So all of these Legion units are sort of a tier above, and it means that KHAZAD-DUM are going to have a more solid core to their army than perhaps any other faction. You know, you're going to need some pretty serious armor piercing or skill in order to break through KHAZAD-DUM's core in a pure infantry fight. Not many factions are going to be able to boast that they can go toe to toe with them, and the 3rd Legion, while a little bit more pricey than most other standard units, they are still going to do a very good job at holding a line. And then backing them up, I also have the Sentries of KHAZAD-DUM. I didn't bring the 1st Legion pikemen because they're a little bit expensive, and I wanted to have more pikes rather than overall quality of pikes. And then if we look up here, we can see, as I sort of go and find them, my line is a bit wide for good reason, as I'm sure you'll note when I reveal my opponent. But I have some Dwarven Miners up here on either flank, just to add some numbers, because I do feel as though KHAZAD-DUM will struggle to field a huge army. Like, numbers are going to be something that, as the Dwarves, you're going to have to try and sort of deal with the fact that you're going to have less in most situations. I mean, against the Elves, you'll probably be pretty even, maybe have a little bit more. But I think the Miners will be good as a buffer unit, and I needed a bit more in terms of numbers to face my opponent. I've got a couple of units of the 4th Legion, which are the Spear variant of the Legionnaires. And obviously, again, spears are going to be important against my opponent here, but they are also going to have a great deal of mass. Very difficult to push through, very solid, and of course very resistant to arrows, as most of the Dwarven line, other than the KHAZAD Orc Hunters and the Miners. And then down here we can see the Guards of KHAZAD-DUM. Again, this isn't my General's unit, but I did have 1400 gold exactly left to spend on my army, and this is the most expensive unit you can field as KHAZAD-DUM, and I think this unit is now better than the Mithril Guard once again. So the Guards of KHAZAD-DUM kind of reprising their role as the most elite infantry unit, at least for KHAZAD-DUM. For Erebor, that's a little bit different, of course. I've also got a unit of the Reclaimers, which in terms of close range skirmish power, probably going to be they are your only real answer in terms of real potency up close, because you don't have the Ironfoot axe throwers, you don't have any crossbows either. So this is going to be really one of your very few answers to sort of warding off very heavy cavalry, I think, which is a bit of a gap in the KHAZAD-DUM roster. They do have the mounted crossbows, but the mounted crossbows are fragile, of course, and that's the Shield Guard. And then back here, my General is in a unit of Sons of the Fallen. Again, this is mainly to sort of try and ward off enemy cavalry from charging him, because you don't really want to get entangled in Sons of the Fallen too easily. So again, it's a way of trying to protect my General in a way. But now we shall have a look at my opponent, and very quickly you'll see why I brought so many archers and pikes and spears, because I'm up against Rohan, played by DI. He's got a couple of units of these Riddermark archers here at the front, lower tier archers, but again, they're just here, I think, to target down specific units, because most Dwarven units are going to be very resilient to archers, so you don't want to invest too heavily in an archer line. Really only stuff like the Dragon Slayers and Temple Guard are going to be very effective at all against some of the heavier Dwarven units. He's got Riddermark Spears and Riddermark Axemen, so some low tier infantry, but they are quite numerous, so hoping to saturate certain parts of the line, I imagine. And obviously, you know, it's more of a stalling measure than anything. Very few Rohan units can go toe-to-toe with the Dwarves. The Hornburg Guard are one such unit, however. They will be able to hold the line together pretty effectively. And then as we move on up here, we will also see that he's got the Westfold Red Shields in force as well. The 2 Rohan infantry units that can genuinely go toe-to-toe with the Dwarves. And then as we move back here, we also see that the shield maidens are here, the axe throwers, of course, again, not too surprising to see them here, so I'm going to need to be careful of them as the battle goes on. There's another unit of shield maidens up there. He's got a large amount of Aelingers, so again, this is the new name for the Aerid Heavy Lancers. More fragile shock cavalry. They're not obviously as fragile as the Eastfold Scouts, but they are still going to be quite vulnerable to archer fire simply because they aren't the most heavily armoured. They do have a shield, but of course when they turn to sort of run away after they've delivered their charge, they could take quite a lot of damage. So I'm going to have to be wary about sort of focusing them down, because obviously if they find gaps, they're going to be able to lay down a great deal of charge damage. The unit that I'm most scared of, however, are these guys, the Sons of Yore. Of course, the most heavy-duty Rohan cavalry unit that there is. And really the only answer I have for these guys are my KHAZAD-DUM reclaimers if DI doesn't notice them, or if he runs into my pikes without really paying much attention either, because KHAZAD-DUM really have very few answers to the Sons of Yore, I think. Again, the mounted crossbows are probably the best answer to that, but I was very wary of Rohan's horse archer because it would only take one horse archer unit to render my crossbows very impotent indeed. He didn't bring horse archers, but what he did bring, rather worryingly, was 3 units of the Yorling skirmishers. So these guys, of course, the mounted javelins. Hit and run on my dwarven line could be pretty nasty if he's able to micro all of his cavalry very efficiently. But for now, we shall begin. And as we have a look, obviously he's deployed on both sides. My deployment wasn't great, to be honest with you. I did deploy a little bit far forwards, which most of the time I'm not really a fan of deploying further back because I find it a little bit, you know, we're here to fight, we're not here to dance around one another. But, you know, as the dwarves, I think you have to kind of be more defensive and more conservative. It's the only way to play them, really. Otherwise, you're just going to put yourself at a bit of a disadvantage, as I have here, because I have to reorganise my entire line while also keeping an eye on that pretty substantial Rohan cavalry force. Now, the one major advantage I do have, obviously, is the infantry. This, obviously, it's a 15k, nearly 16k 1v1 on an open field, so this is going to be very much a case of, can I outlast the Rohan cavalry pressure? Because if it turns into an infantry fight, I'm going to win that very easily. The Hornburg Guard and the Red Shields are good, but they're definitely not going to be enough to override my very elite dwarven units like the Guards of KHAZAD-DUM, and even stuff like this 3rd Legion here at the front is going to be very effective at dealing with the vast majority of the Rohan foot units. But it's the skirmishers and the cavalry that I'm going to have to be really wary of. Obviously Rohan very much at home on an open field, the dwarves very much not so. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. This is the first time I've played the dwarves in the new patch as well. First time I've played as KHAZAD-DUM as well. So several new units. I was interested to see how the Legion units would do, because this is really the core of KHAZAD-DUM. A little bit more quality, but then you get what you pay for. As you can see over here, this really was my first mistake. I was trying to reorganise my line, didn't get my pikes in position quickly enough. They were still waddling around, being very slow, as dwarves are wont to be, and the Aeling is able to charge in from the front here and get a nice charge onto the front of my 3rd Legion infantry. Started shooting with my Orc Hunters, but of course it's not going to be too effective from the front with the shields, and obviously the Orc Hunters, they're okay as archers, but they're definitely not the best. They're not going to be able to lay down a huge amount of damage very quickly. I don't know if it was just me, but they seem very slow at firing in this battle as well. But yeah, a decent dent there in my 3rd Legion infantry. I can't afford to be losing too much of that, because that's really my main advantage here in this fight, but he does run off with his Aelingers, only killing a couple really as well, like a handful. Definitely not a worthwhile trade for me there. Lost a lot of 3rd Legion. You can see that the mounted javelins have sort of taken up position behind me. My archers, this is going to be the key to my battle here, because I don't really have a choice but to try and sort of form a pseudo nude box, as it were, because otherwise, if I leave gaps, the Rohan cavalry is just going to run roughshod all over me. So if you don't like a sort of very cat and mouse style 1v1, you're not going to like playing as the dwarves or going up against them, because they can't be aggressive against Rohan, otherwise you're just going to get charged to oblivion on the approach, which is a shame, because I could try and get into those infantrymen and I'd be able to cause a lot of damage. But you can see that now my pikes have finally waddled their way into position, sort of backing up my infantry, just in case he does come forward with all of his sort of melee infantry units. I have formed a sort of a front line, but it's mainly going to be my Orc Hunters here that are going to be the primary focus of my strategy early on, because I'm going to need to keep his cavalry at arm's length. The Aelingers, as you saw from the charge on the 3rd Legion, capable of dealing a pretty heavy amount of damage to even a solid infantry unit. You can see that he's just sort of wrapping them out around me. I always feel uncomfortable when this starts happening to me as a player, even as the dwarves. It's one reason why I don't like being a more static-based faction. I was much more of a fan of how Imladris do things. So he's going to try and get into my archers here with the Aelingers, but he sees my spears and my miners coming forward, going to pincer him, so he thinks better of it and runs off. So I do get some cheap kills there on his melee cavalry, well, shock cavalry. And that's good, because if I can deal with his cavalry, the advantage in this battle is clearly going to be mine, because in an infantry fight, KHAZAD-DUM are going to have the better of most factions in the game in most situations. You can see over here, if we have a look at the situation here in the Rohan lines, he's obviously got his Riddermark archers firing in, just a couple of units. Whenever the cavalry is not in range, I'm just focusing them down to hope to sort of give them a little bit less of a ranged option, because otherwise I can find myself being on the receiving end of being skirmished down for a long time. And again, I don't blame DI for not moving in. If he moved in, his infantry would get just dumpstered by my Dwarven sentries and my 3rd Legion. So this is just smart play from him, what he's doing now, just sort of trying to sort of whittle me down where he can, getting a few sneaky charges off, and it's about trying to find the gaps in my line. You can see back down here I've got my Sons of the Fallen and my Shield Guard and my Guards of KHAZAD-DUM. It's a very unorganised position from me, to be honest with you, but again, I was caught off guard, and there is a limited amount I can do about this, of course. The movement is all in Rohan's favour. The dwarves are incredibly slow, and that's one reason why I'm not really a fan of how they play, mainly because your ability to be reactive is so limited by their speed and their overall manoeuvrability around the battlefield. Because you could say that yes, they do get the mercenary merchant cavalry, but that's not really worth a great deal against a faction like Rohan. It's just a bit of it's a difficult matchup for KHAZAD-DUM to get involved with. Having said that, I can outlast them, and that is what I'm trying to do now. Some of my sentries are also taking a bit of archer fire as well. You can see that he is sort of trying to come in, and I am making it difficult for him. So once again, the Aelingers sort of cresting the hill over here, and once again they're sort of running away. But again, it's only a matter of time really until he starts getting these nice charges off, because I only have so many men, and it's like sort of trying to paper over the cracks in my defence is not easy. And then here comes the real problem that I'm going to have: the mounted skirmishers. Again, they're going to be able to throw their javelins, getting a few nice volleys off onto my 4th Legion Shield Guards, several of them falling, and that is a lot of javelins. They did run a little bit far, they strayed into my Sons of the Fallen. And again, here come the Aelingers, managing to find a gap, so he committed forward his javelins, baited my spears into that, and now I'm having to sort of deal with the Aelingers. They managed to get into my KHAZAD Orc Hunters. However, they are shaken from the KHAZAD-DUM Reclaimers, and now here comes another charge from the Aelingers. I think they're going to back off because of the spears there. But this is going to be the problem. Now, I do have mounted crossbows in the KHAZAD-DUM roster, which I could have brought, but again, one unit of Rohan horse archers is enough to completely counter them. If I was playing as Rohan against KHAZAD-DUM, I would definitely bring one unit of horse archers just to counteract those mounted crossbows, because they're really the only answer to something like this. The Aeling skirmishers were able to come in. They got 2 or 3 nice volleys off onto my 4th Legion Shield Guard before running away. My archers only had enough time to react for 1 volley, and that's only going to be enough to kill 6 or 7, if that, Aeling skirmishers in a big blob like this. So again, there's not really much I can do other than try and absorb this pressure, and that's never a good feeling as a player when you're just sort of left here with a big target on your forehead. So for me, not really my style of play, but it can be effective, and it's not going too badly for me at the moment, to be fair. I am falling behind in terms of kills, so I am about 8% behind. But this isn't a disaster, because a lot of Rohan's percentage of their army is tied up in their lower tier units, which are not going to stand a chance in melee against my dwarves. A lot of my archers have been falling away to the Riddermark skirmishers, however. The Riddermark archers, and this is bad for me, of course, because this is really my only answer to the mounted javelins. And of course the Orc Hunters of KHAZAD-DUM are a bit of a squishy part of the KHAZAD-DUM roster. They're going to be one of the few units that are going to do quite poorly against archer fire, whereas the vast majority of KHAZAD-DUM and of course the dwarves in general are going to be very resilient against that sort of thing, and it wouldn't be worth their time going after the miners, just trying to form up some sort of line. You can see that his cavalry's there, and the scary thing is he hasn't even committed his Sons of Yorl as of yet, sort of saving them for the late game, which is bad news for me. So again, he's going to be sort of moving his Aelingers, and I was seeing this as the battle was going on and seeing him sort of move around in position, and it was so frustrating not being able to do anything about it. Because here comes the Aeling skirmishers once again. They're going to be able to throw their javelins in, going after my Shield Guard and my Sons of the Fallen, and again several of them falling. And I have no real choice other than to try and shoot them down, and again, a few of them fall, but nowhere near as many as my dwarves are falling. And this is a cheap skirmisher, which is getting a huge amount of value for money, and over here, of course, whenever I try and go after his skirmishers, he's able to pick through the gaps in my defence, because I don't have enough men to cover every angle, and the Aerlinger's getting a nice charge onto my miners. Try to counter-charge, but ultimately, that's not going to be worth a huge amount of kills there on the Aerlingers, because, of course, the miners, definitely the minnows of the Dwarven roster. So it's just, again, trying to absorb this pressure as we sort of crest the 7,000 frame mark. And the Aerling skirmish is really the bane of my existence in this battle so far. The mounted crossbows are really the only solid answer to this. And again, I think I will do a bit of theory crafting after this battle is over to sort of wonder about the KHAZAD-DUM roster a little bit. As you can see, the Riddermark archers sort of moving in, trying to put more pressure on my own archers. Again, my Orc hunters have been ravaged a little bit by the Rohan archers, because again, the Rohan archers have only had a single target in mind, mine, whereas my archers have had to sort of switch their targets as the battle has gone on. As we look here, the Aerlinger's getting another nice charge onto my mind, and that's going to be enough to pretty much destroy that unit. Again, trying to sort of shoot them as they come close, because that's all I can do, and only a few of them fall every time. And again, once again, the Aerling skirmishers coming in, getting some more nice hits on my 4th Legion Shield Guard, making that unit very impotent now with how few men that are left. A single charge from the cavalry at this point might be enough to finish them off. As we can see over here, the 4th Legion Shield Guard and the miners are actually able to get into melee against the skirmishers now. And they are shaken and wavering, so this might be enough to break them actually, but we can see that the Aerlingers are also going to be enough to sort of get in. His cavalry sort of collapsing in on me, the Aerlinger's getting some nice charges off onto my archers. His skirmishers do end up breaking because they got into melee with my shield guard, so they are fragile. But ultimately their damage has already been done, and they will come back, of course. The Aerlingers, of course, also wavering, getting into melee with my pikemen, which is not really what they want to be doing. But even so, the value for money that DI has gotten out of his cavalry here thus far outstrips the amount that I've been able to shave off his cavalry, because they aren't even gone. They will come back from routing. One of my units of miners is basically gone. There's 5 men left in that unit over there, but I've lost a lot of men at this point, and I've been slowly bled out, and it was very frustrating sort of being sat here and having no answers for it. And over here you can see now the percentage of kills has gone pretty heavily against me. I'm 19% behind now. These Aerlingers getting into my archers once again, although at this point my archers are honestly not too much of a threat. I mean, so many of them have died that the volume of fire they're going to be able to lay down, very limited indeed. More Aerlingers are coming back at this point. And also the skirmishers, the Yorling skirmishers, have sort of come back from routing, and they're going to sort of once again group up and get ready for another javelin volley. And at this point I was thinking, if I stay here, I'm just going to end up being skirmished down until my army is virtually non-existent, and then his army's just going to roll forth and crush me, and I wasn't having any of that. So the Aerlingers again getting trapped in between my Sons of the Fallen and the miners, and they're going to run off. They are wavering, but I did resolve to advance into Rohan's line simply because I didn't want to die on the defensive. I wanted to move forward and die on the offensive, and I wanted to engage his infantry, because at least that way my infantry can sort of really start to carve into those Riddermark axemen and spearmen, because they are going to have no chance against my dwarves. It's not impossible that I could still pull this out. I do still have some very units of real genuine quality. I do still have my pikes, which are going to be difficult for the enemy cavalry to get into, but the fact that his Yorling skirmishers are still there, and I have very little answer to them now with the fact that my archers are so depleted. Again, my KHAZAD-DUM reclaimers have got very similar range, so that's not going to be useful, and also I need my reclaimers to go after the Sons of Yor. So it's not too long now where my 3rd Legion starts to move forward, and it's there that I do make another mistake, because I sort of once again sort of send my line forward fragmented. I sort of started to move forward, and I was desperate to get into the Rohan infantry. I didn't want to die just sort of sat there accepting all this arrow fire and javelins to the face. I wanted to get into the Rohan infantry, but my 3rd Legion, once again, much quicker than my pikes, so again my advance is very fragmented, and I was trying to sort of get over here, trying to sort of stay away as much as I could from the Sons of Yor. There are these shield maidens over here as well, which were always going to be a danger. There's also Meduseld guards somewhere around here. Yes, there they are. So he's got another very strong javelin unit. At this point, the battle is sort of turning against me in terms of percentage kills and the resources that they have left. Really my only chance is if I manage to smash through the Rohan infantry very, very quickly and form up a defensive perimeter, but that is unlikely. You can see the sentries of KHAZAD-DUM moving forward. And let's move in down here. You can see that the Westfold Red Shields are coming over to reinforce the line, which is going to be a problem, particularly for these units of 3rd Legion over here, which are, you know, that was the one that took the battering early on from the cavalry charge that opened the battle up. These Riddermark Spears are going to stand no chance against the 3rd Legion though, as I sort of try and form up a nice cluster of dwarves over here, but once again my pikes are lagging behind, which of course you can see the Aelingers menacingly in the background over there are going to be able to get a nice rear charge onto my 3rd Legion over here, leaving their backs and sides exposed, which is going to be very bad. Already my 3rd Legion are shaken, which I found kind of interesting considering that the cavalry had not even hit them yet, but it is what it is, I suppose. And here we go. So the 3rd Legion taking a nice charge. Not many of them dying, to be fair. This unit of Aeling is a little bit more depleted than they once were. But the Westfold Red Shields in melee able to hold their own. My pikes finally getting into the fight now. They weren't actually in shield wall formation for the longest time. I did take them out of it and then re-engage it. The Dwarven pikes are just even slower than their heavy infantry, if you can believe that. And then over here you can see the sentries of KHAZAD-DUM marching in. They're going to be backed up by the guards because of the Hornburg Guard are over here, and I'm going to need my elites to deal with them. The Meduseld Guard. There they are. The elite Rohan Javelins. And they are going to be targeting down my KHAZAD-DUM Reclaimers, and you can see that they are wreaking havoc among them. Really, I have been outmaneuvered and outplayed at every turn in this battle so far. And the annoying thing is I could see it. I could see it and was powerless to do anything about it. And here come the Dwarven Miners. I have made micro mistakes as well, like sending forward the 3rd Legion. They got ahead of the pikes, but that ultimately isn't what is losing me this fight. And then over here you can see that the Riddermark Axemen are able to sort of cycle in around behind me. The Shield Maidens are also going to be able to go around me as well. So despite the fact that you can see my infantry in a straight up fight, victory is a distinct possibility, or victory is certain, all the way down this line. And this is against Red Shields and Hornburg Guards, so the Dwarven infantry is strong. But ultimately, I have been outmaneuvered. My Sons of the Fallen, I'm trying to sort of crack the Rohan infantry as quickly as I possibly can, because he's got the skirmish advantage. He's also got those Sons of Yore, which I don't really have a great deal of answers to. I have my KHAZAD-DUM Reclaimers, but that's basically it. And I'm running out of units that I can actually protect my KHAZAD-DUM Reclaimers with. See here that my 4th Legion, this was the only unit I had that could do that, but I need to get into these Riddermark Axemen, otherwise they're going to recharge my lines. Meduseld Guard don't have a lot of ammunition, to be fair, so they are now getting into melee, but they are going to be able to turn the tide against my Sons of the Fallen. The 4th Legion Shield Guard getting into those Riddermark Axes. Of course the 4th Legion will be victorious there, but they're fighting a unit that I didn't really want them to be fighting against. The KHAZAD-DUM Reclaimers throwing their axes, doing a lot of damage to the Rohan infantry, but this is going to be it. This is going to be the killer blow from the Rohan cavalry right here, the Sons of Yore. If I lose my KHAZAD-DUM Reclaimers, I've lost my only unit that can kill the Sons of Yore, or at least keep them away from my lines. And that is it. Broken and bloodied. The finest Dwarven armour won't protect you from that. Also, I still do have a few Orc Hunters of KHAZAD-DUM, but they largely... You can see that they've been hunted down by what's remaining of the Yorling skirmishers, and there's also another unit of Aelingers, I think, that was back here. And now here come the Shield Maidens, so this is going to be, again, the final blow. They're going to be able to throw their axes into the backs of my sentries and my guards, and that's going to leave my front line in tatters. You can see though that the Dwarven infantry has done a very good job. I mean, they have cleaned up the vast majority of the Rohan infantry despite being at a huge disadvantage. And there go the axes into the backs of the sentries. Again, if my micro had been better, this would probably be closer. I mean, considering it was 20% at one point and it's now closer to 10, when the infantry engagement started, things did start to turn around for me, but ultimately, there goes my general, at the hands of the Meduseld Guard. But ultimately, I never felt like I stood too much of a chance in this battle when the halfway point arrived, because I knew that I had to either advance or I'd just die where I stood. And even if I advanced, this was the sort of thing that was always going to happen. The Sons of Yore able to find the gaps in my advance and how I set up, and they're just going to be able to recharge me into oblivion at this point. Meduseld Guard over here as well, victory seems certain for them. What have we got over here? I've still got quite a lot of Sons of the Fallen. There's still a few lower tier Rohan units. The Riddermark archers are shaken. You can see over here that, of course, the 4th Legion able to comfortably beat Riddermark axes. Over here, what's left of it, I tried to push through with my Guards of KHAZAD-DUM, and that did work to an extent. But the Shield Maiden's able to just butcher my pikes that were backing them up over here, and now the Shield Maidens are going to come in. I think I did actually rout off a unit of Riddermark archers, but that's definitely not the most important unit that's left on the field. And the Shield Maidens will back up the Hornburg Guard, and with their numbers will probably be enough to defeat my guards. This is the one area of the battle which I'm comfortably winning. The Westfold Red Shields are falling in the face of my 3rd Legion and my sentries. I still have a few KHAZAD-DUM reclaimers, but nowhere near enough to make a difference in the outcome of this fight. Just trying to throw my axes where I can. So yeah, I mean, I got it back to within 10%, which, considering how this battle was going, I'm not too ashamed of. And for my first time playing as the Dwarves against a player who is really very good with Rohan. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him not play as Khand or Rohan, actually, to be honest. So I'm not ashamed of the fact that I'm clearly going to lose this fight, but I would question KHAZAD-DUM's ability to actually counter a faction like this. I feel against Khand and Rohan, they are going to have a torrid time in an open field. Because all it takes, like the mounted crossbows are going to be largely their only answer to a unit like the Sons of Yule, or even the mounted skirmishers like the javelins and the axe throwers that both factions have available. Without the crossbows, without the foot crossbows anyway, that's gonna be what you're relying on. I mean, you can try and noob box up fully, like deploy further back on the field, which I should have done, to be honest, anyway. But that's gonna be you relying on your infantry to just hold. And I don't know if they can. Against a player who knows what they're doing, I don't think the Dwarves of KHAZAD-DUM are going to be having too much joy against Rohan or Khand. Simply because that twinning of the skirmish cab and the heavy cab, like the Sons of Yule here, it's going to be a similar story with Khand with their cataphracts. There's very little you can do as KHAZAD-DUM. When you see something going wrong, your troops are so slow that you can't really react to it. So you need to be so defensive in nature. It's not really my cup of tea. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just suck with the Dwarves. And if that's the case, I would like to see the Dwarves working. So if someone has got the Dwarves beating Rohan or Khand comfortably, then I would very much like to see that. But also I feel as though I need to play KHAZAD-DUM against one of the factions that they should be better against. I would be very interested to see how they perform against the Orcs on an open field, to see if their infantry, despite being less in number, significantly less, I would be very interested to see if their quality would allow them to hold out against the vast amount of Orcs that can come at you. Something like Mordor or Gundabad, rushing forth, or Isengard. I would be interested to see if KHAZAD-DUM could make that work in an open field, because obviously in a siege they're going to be very good. You can see the Shield Maidens, a death blob of them. At this point it's just a matter of clean-up, so we'll move up to ×2 speed. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could say I'm quite disappointed with KHAZAD-DUM. Even if my micro had been good, with my pick of army, I don't think I would have stood too much of a chance here. Yeah, definitely not my favourite kind of faction. I was much more impressed with how Imladris had been changed. I feel as though Erebor will be more my kind of thing as far as Dwarves go, simply because of their foot crossbows and their ability to ward off that very dangerous cavalry. KHAZAD-DUM a bit limp-wristed. So I've only got one unit of sentries at this point. And the Sons of Yule are clearly going to rear charge them. The Viper is poised to strike. Wasn't sure why he retreated it. I actually didn't notice them use Eldgard for the longest time in this battle. But they did a lot of damage to my KHAZAD-DUM reclaimers before the Sons of Yule really finished them off and put them in the ground. So here we go. The final battle. And I think my troops are going to rout off in the face of the Sons of Yule charge, which is coming. Oh, they routed before that, actually. Fun. But yeah, I mean, if you look at... Rohan didn't have many troops left. He had a lot of troops of genuine quality, though. Obviously Rohan with a lot more men deployed. Well, actually no, Rohan with less men deployed because they have more cavalry. So if we have a look at what... Oh, hello. Have a look at what got my kills. 3rd Legion doing well, the 4th Legion doing well as well. This unit of 195, mostly that was on Riddermark axes though. Sentries of KHAZAD-DUM doing very well, so again this just proves that against the lightly armoured Rohan infantry your pikes are going to do very well. My Orc Hunters, largely trying to zone out the cavalry. They were kind of successful, they got a decent amount of kills each, but again you have to remember they weren't only going after cavalry, so at least half the kills, if not more, on each of these units will be on the Riddermark archers, which are kind of a throwaway unit in this build for Rohan. Guards of KHAZAD-DUM, not really getting the kills to justify their 1,400 florins. So yeah, definitely a battle in which I struggled a lot. So let it not be said that I only post stuff in which I win. But yeah, I'm not sure how KHAZAD-DUM would go about facing Rohan. In fact, let's do a bit of theory crafting, shall we? Let's go into the custom battle page and try and build a KHAZAD-DUM army to face Rohan that was a little bit better than the one that I just made. So again, the standard for a 1v1 is 13k. 1300, you'd really struggle. You can only afford like one unit as the dwarves with 1300. So again, looking at the options that I have available to me, I think what we want is a unit of Sons of the Fallen for the general, simply because it's going to be much less of a juicy prospect for that Rohan shock cavalry to go after and try and charge and assassinate your general, because if they get caught in melee with the Sons of the Fallen, most units, even the Sons of Yorl, are going to take some pretty hefty losses. Guards of KHAZAD-DUM didn't really perform all that well, to be honest with you. They did decently, they pushed through the Rohan line, but they were focused down. So I'm thinking, because the Sons of the Fallen are only 1,000, let's get another unit of them instead. So we've got 2 units of Sons of the Fallen instead of 1, and some Guards of KHAZAD-DUM. What else can we bring? Well, I think that the 4 units of archers are kind of a necessity to ward off the Rohan cavalry. Maybe 3, depending on how this army, sort of, if we need some more money, maybe we can get rid of one of these. Now this is probably a must, to be honest with you. I think these 2 units of mercenary crossbows are going to be necessary against Rohan, otherwise you're going to suffer the same fate that my army just did there. The only problem is, all Rohan need to do is bring 2 basic units of horse archers, and your fragile mercenary crossbowmen are going to be cut down, I think. And that's going to be a problem, because DI may not have brought horse archers here, but if I was Rohan playing against KHAZAD-DUM, I'd bring one just to counteract the mercenary crossbowmen, and then you can do, well, you can follow the exact blueprint of the battle that just happened. So I would worry for KHAZAD-DUM in that situation. Now, the 3rd Legion did well when they got into melee. 700 for them, 600 for the warriors of KHAZAD-DUM. Though I think the cheaper variant is probably going to be, well, actually they've got, if you have a look at the armour, that's 6, that's 8. Yeah, we will go for the 4 warriors of KHAZAD-DUM for now. The pikes performed well, so I would bring them again. The miners, they were always going to be a bit of a buffer. They are cheap though, so if we bring another couple of units of miners, so we've got 1,700 florins left with which to buy some more units. Interesting. Actually, yes, we're going to need the 4th Legion Shield Guard. Those spears perform very well as well. So then you've got 300 florins left to essentially upgrade what you will. So you could then potentially make your 4th Legion, your Orc Hunters, a little bit more durable with that armour upgrade. Also the mercenary crossbowmen, which I think would be a must against the horse archers, make them a little bit more durable. I think you need to bring the mercenary mounted crossbows as KHAZAD-DUM against any faction that can field decent cavalry, because otherwise you're going to suffer the same fate that I did here. But for it to be their only viable option against Rohan and Khan, I would worry, because I think the horse archers would tear them apart, and then Rohan and Khan can again pick apart the Dwarven army at their leisure. Maybe I'm wrong though. If anyone would like to prove me wrong and play KHAZAD-DUM properly instead of my fumbling, please feel free to show it to me. I would also want to play KHAZAD-DUM against the Orcs to see how they perform there. But yeah, this was KHAZAD-DUM. This was another battle. I wasn't really on the top of my game here, to be honest with you. It wasn't a great battle by me, but I hope you enjoyed the battle for what it was regardless. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.